This AgVision program is made possible through the generous support of Syngenta Seeds MacKay brand. The results you need, the freedom to choose. And by Farms.com. Ag news, market prices, ag careers, and farm real estate. You'll find it all at Farms.com.
Well, we know that the realities of farm production aren't always the same as the perceptions. What is the Canadian understanding of food safety, for example, biotechnology, animal welfare? The Ontario Farm Animal Council wanted to find answers to these questions and more, and has done so in extensive studies with the Ipsos Reid polling firm. Crystal MacKay is Executive Director of OFAC and joins us now. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you've been doing this ongoing for a long time now. You've done a Canada-wide study, you're doing Ontario-wide studies. First of all, maybe tell us what your main goal is in gathering this information.
Sure. The Ontario Farm Animal Council's goal is to communicate to the public about agriculture. And as people in farming, sometimes we're not in touch with our target audience. So it's basically a reality check to see what issues, concerns, perceptions are really out there, so then we can address our communications materials to meet those needs.
So you have some new numbers in. I know you've asked many questions on these surveys. What's your biggest surprise with the findings this time around?
Our biggest surprise, and it's a good news story, is that almost 3/4 of Canadians said that they are interested in knowing more about farm practices. This is a record high, and it makes me very happy as someone who talks about agriculture to the public to say, you know what, they are interested in knowing where their food comes from and how farm animals are raised.
To what do you credit the increased interest?
I see a growing trend towards people wanting to buy local, to have some understanding of where their food comes from, and just a general interest in food has increased, which then of course ties back to the farm.
And I suppose the more informed we are, the more we tend to want to know too.
It's true. Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk specifics now, some of the findings. One of them was among high areas of concern or interest was farm subsidies from the government.
Yes. We asked, before we get into our issues and with the public, we asked some open questions in terms of what concerns, if any, do you have about food or farming in Canada? Just top of mind. So Joe Q public, who probably hasn't thought about farming in a long time, unless they've heard it on the news, will just tell us what they think. And the level of subsidies or financial stability of farming has come up as the #1 issue in the past few studies, and which, as someone in agriculture, tells us that the public is getting the message that farming is tough business these days and there is a need for subsidization.
So that's good news.
I think so.
And we're targeting obviously a mostly rural, or urban rather, demographic with these studies.
It's actually representative of the Canadian population, so definitely higher urban than rural, and also nobody that's actually actively involved in farming is surveyed.
Okay, so a bit of a sort of Joe average person.
Yes,
all right.
exactly.
Food safety, you mentioned it earlier, top of mind, it tends to be increasing. What kinds of results did you see in terms of food safety awareness and concern?
So food safety always comes up as the #1 issue people have about food or farming, and that makes sense because, you know, we eat 3 times a day, you're feeding your kids, so you need to be sure that your food is safe. So that comes up as the most important issue, which shouldn't be a surprise. Questions that they have are around things like antibiotics, hormone use, if any, what animals are being fed, and how it relates to their food on their table. The good news story on food safety is Canadians have great confidence in our food supply. Very, very high numbers, 90% range of somewhat or very safe. Great confidence in our food supply, our government inspection system, and just in general in our food system in general.
Well, especially in an era with BSE and avian flu making the headlines, were you surprised that it's that high then?
Well, I was happily surprised, I guess, and I'd like to credit our Canadian media on that they've done a great job through BSE and avian flu specifically to be very clear to the public to say this is not a food safety issue, which in some other countries they haven't been so responsible. So I credit our journalists for helping us out with that one.
It's telling you that messages are getting out anyway, which is
Definitely.
Part of what you're trying to find out.
Yes.
What about biotechnology? Is there an awareness, A, of even what that is, and if so, is there much of a concern around that?
Well, very low awareness. We have to define it when we ask the question to be sure the public understands what we're trying to ask about. In general, people are opposed to the concept of biotechnology, but then they become in favor of specific traits. So, for example, we talk about, would you be in favor of the concept of producing a pig that has environmentally friendly manure? They like that concept, but which is a specific benefit as opposed to just the general area of biotechnology, which is consistent with any surveys done on that topic.
What about livestock production in general? Does there seem to be a high level of awareness of exactly what's going on?
Not at all. And that's not a surprise to
No.
us, right? We know about 2% of our population farms. Very few people know a farmer or what's going on. And even, you know, our friends that live in the country, they drive by a farm every day, doesn't mean they understand what's happening. So about 80% of Canadians say they know little to very little about farming. But then, remember, as I said earlier, they are interested in knowing more. So to me, it tells the people in agriculture there's an opportunity to talk to our neighbors and our friends in downtown, wherever, to say, you know what, we appreciate that you have questions about farming, you don't know where to go for information, you don't have a lot of information, but you are interested in learning more, so there's opportunities there.